Hello, I am a 40-year-old male. I want to share my near-death experience with you because I really haven't told anyone about everything that I witnessed and saw while I was dead twice. But let me back up a bit and tell you a bit of background. Like I said, I'm 40 years old, but my medical problems started a lot earlier in my life. I had my first heart attack when I was 25, and then almost every year after that I either had a heart attack or another medical issue. When I was a kid, I was very active and never chose to sit inside and be lazy, but instead I would go outside and do something, anything. I loved sports and the outdoors, and that went on till my first heart attack at 25. The following year I had another one, and that was when I had my first NDE. I remember being in my mom's room while she was on her computer talking with her, and next I remember being in the ambulance with the paramedics working on me. I was freaking out, telling them I was fine, and asked what were they doing and why were they all rushing around. It was confusing, but as I was telling them I was fine, I started feeling my chest hurt, and boom, I woke up again and I was standing in front of a massive building. Well, building is a weird way to describe it, but it's difficult to describe. Standing in front of a building that looked like those Roman buildings with the really tall pillars. The light seemed to be coming from all around, like there was no source coming from one spot. It was everywhere. The front of the building had one giant doorway. There was no door, just an open doorway. As I looked at this building, my uncle, who died approximately 5 or 6 years before this, was standing beside me. He tells me that I'm going to have to go into the building, but he will walk with me. I walked with my uncle through this massive Colosseum building with the huge pillars lining the entire way through the middle. As we were walking, nothing was said, and it felt like nothing needed to be said. I was calm and didn't feel like I needed to worry at all. As I got to about the middle of this room, I heard my grandfather's voice saying, "This is not your time." And we stopped, and I opened my eyes, and I was in the hospital. Well, after that happened, the heart doctor put in a stent and said that I was lucky to be alive and had been clinically dead for 14 minutes. So fast forwarding through about 10 years, in which during that time I had more heart attacks, multiple knee surgeries, neck fusion. All my lower back was fused also, and after all that, boom, another major heart attack. Again. This time I woke up in a beautiful rolling field standing on the edge of a large pond. As I look around, I can see that same huge pillar building on the top of a hill in the back left part of this field, and a waterfall that seemed to be coming from nowhere that was falling into the other side of this large pond. But as I looked, I had noticed that where the water was falling into the pond, that it was causing no disturbance to the water of the pond. It was quite beautiful. There was also a tree line on the back right side of this field. It came from the right back side and came all the way out almost to the middle of this field. This tree line is important. As I'm looking around, I see again my uncle that met me when I died the first time. When I notice him, he is smiling at me and says, "Hello again." I remember laughing, and he raised his arms and asks, "Do you like it?" Referring to my surroundings. I said to him, "Yes, I do." He brought one of his arms down, motioning towards the pond, and says, "This is where we are going to be doing our fishing." And as I look down, I can see that I am standing about an inch off the top of the water, looking straight down into the pond and seeing large fish swimming around. Then I look back up to him, and he is motioning to me to join him on the other side. So my uncle says, "There is someone waiting for you." I immediately get this feeling that runs throughout my whole body, the feeling that I was experiencing. Well, the closest way to describe it would be love, but with that feeling also came knowledge. Not from my uncle saying anything to me, or not from me guessing. It was knowledge that was absolute, finite. This knowledge was telling me that I knew exactly who was waiting for me, which made me even more happy. Let me pause for a second right here and say something, and then I'll get back to my story. Because of all of my medical problems, I am always in a lot of pain. Moving is hard to do. Standing or sitting for long periods both give me pain on top of the pain that I already have. Along with other medical issues, Walking sucks and running is just out of the question. But when I was dead and on the other side, I felt none of that pain, none of that depression. I felt happy, and this isn't the kind of happy that's the same as we here would say like, I'm so happy 'cause I got a new car, or I'm so happy that Häagen-Dazs ice cream has made a new chocolate flavor. No, this was the kind of happy when all your happiest times are all rolled up into a constant feeling of true happiness. And also when I said that my uncle told me, or he said, I never saw his mouth move, he just kept that smile. It was more like his voice was put right into my head. And when I say that we walked, well, walking is probably not the right word for that either. It was more like gliding. So while I was there, I felt no pain at all, or did not get tired from moving or walking, gliding. Now back to my story. I immediately knew who was waiting for me and where I needed to go, both my uncle, and I started off across this field going toward the tree line, towards the back right section of this field. The trees were large but not sequoia tree size and full of springtime colored leaves. When we reached the edge of the tree line that stopped about midway through the field, we came around and saw a house. Kind of gets a little weird here. This was a 2-story beautiful house with a porch, but as I walked to the corner of the house to look down the side, I noticed that the house was attached to a truck, but not just being pulled by this truck, but actually like the house was the bed of the truck. Like someone could get in and drive and take the house with them. I know, kind of weird. But when I saw what truck it was, it seemed to make sense. It was a green dually. For those that don't know, a dually is a larger than normal pickup truck, usually meant to pull fifth-wheel trailers. So I came back to the porch of the house and went to the door and knocked on it because I knew exactly who was going to open it. I just knew it. It was going to be my dad, who had passed a few years before this happened. I knew it with every part of my being. But before he got to open the door, I heard another familiar voice behind me. It was my grandfather, who passed around the same time my dad did, and the same grandfather that pulled me from there the last time I died. This time he seemed almost, I can't say angry because it was not anger, but concern. Kind of like when as a kid you do something dangerous and your parents see, and they run over and hold you and say, never do that again. Do you know how dangerous that is? And we could have lost you. It's a concerned scolding, I guess, is the best way to put it. Anyway, I didn't see him, but that's the way his voice sounded. My grandfather said this time, not speaking to me, but sounding like he was speaking to my uncle, which is his son. He said in that scolding but concerned voice, he is not done yet. He has to go back. I felt my grandfather's hand grab my arm, and I was pulled up. Then my eyes opened, and I was laying on a hospital bed with nurses and doctors standing over me. I had a few follow-up appointments with this heart doctor, who was the doctor that was standing over me when I woke up, and he told me this story. Mr. Bagwell, you are the luckiest man I've seen. I figured he was going to tell me because you're here, and to change my diet, blah, blah, blah. But no. He told me that I was clinically dead for 27 minutes and that they had been working on me the whole time. Right there at the end, he put down the defibrillator and said, I'm calling it. To those who don't know, it means they were stopping their attempts with bringing me back to life. So he continues by saying, I put the paddles down, looked up at the clock, and said, mark down time of dead. He tells me that as he was trying to say the word death, the heart monitor that was still hooked up beeped once. He said, ha. Then, well, let's try one more shock. So they shocked me one more time, and my eyes popped open wide, looking around the room and trying to move around. I do remember hearing one nurse say, oh my God, and another say, he must have a guardian angel looking over him. The doctor also told me that they had shocked me with the defibrillator over 13 times and that I had the burns on my chest if anyone needed proof. In 2010, I was the victim of a home invasion in which I was shot in the torso, which is a whole different blog post. I figure I was gonna be dead for sure, but pulled out of that too. Let me end with this. I have been to the same place twice after dying, seeing the same person to greet me both times. I've been pulled from that place twice by the same person each time, and each time it was not identical. So it wasn't like my brain was trying to show me the same thing twice. There are people that will say that it was the brain releasing chemicals, or that I was being given drugs in my IV along with the chemicals that my brain was releasing, or other medical mumbo-jumbo. This was such an experience too. Well, experience. It showed me exactly where I was going when I do happen to die, and showed me also that I have led a good life, because if I hadn't, I'm sure that experience would have been a whole lot different. The first time I died, I believed that the hallway of pillars that I was walking down was bringing me to something or someone very important. But not like the second time where I was going to see my dad. The first time felt different, as it felt more important. Well, that's the end. But I do every once in a while remember things that I didn't think of the first time. So I probably will be adding to this post when that happens. For those of you that have negative things to say about my experiences, or want to make comments about the medical way this happened, I'm not interested. I know what happened. I know I was in a beautiful, good place with family that loved me, and that's all that matters. So don't try and make me understand or believe your negative opinions, because again, I'm not interested. I'm not saying you don't have the right to have your own opinions, just please don't try and push them, or make me try and believe them. One more thing. I am looking for an artist that can draw what I saw both times I died. And I do need a real artist, because they have to be able to get the detail that I will describe to them. I don't have any money to pay this person, but I will greatly appreciate it. It will take a few trial and errors, I know, because without being side by side with the artist letting them know certain details, it will be back and forth until we get it right. Well, again, thank you all for reading this, and I will be posting more about my life, because everyone I talk to says that my life should be made into a book. Talk with you all next time. This is an addition. I want to clarify that when I died the first time, and I was being told that I was going to go see someone, I am not saying that I was going to see God or anything. What I said was it was someone important, which could have been another relative or anyone at all. I am not trying to make people believe that this made me start immediately to go to church every day. And for a fact, I am not trying to make people believe in my beliefs. I typed this out to tell people of my experience and what happened to me, not to preach religion to them. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to email me or comment on the blog, and I will get back to you and try and answer any questions you have. I do want to say, though, that since both cardiac deaths, I have felt different. As in, I have been able to feel things and sometimes see things, but try my hardest to block them out, and so far, I have succeeded in doing so. But lately, I am feeling like I don't want to block that up anymore. So if there are any mediums or sensitives around that would like to take on a student, or just to give me some good advice, please feel free. I do not talk to dead people. I do not see dead people. Yet, I think if I start mentally breaking down that wall I built to keep all that out, I may be able to strengthen my ability.